Week 10 stacks. We're going to talk through this as a group, as a community. We're also going to build some rosters for the DraftKings Millionaire Maker. But let's start with a poll. So if anyone's here, obviously, watching this video after the fact, we are live every Monday and Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and then Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. 19 votes right now for Buffalo and Arizona. We got some Seattle and LA Rams pretty close behind, though. So what I want to do with these polls for the stacks video, guys, I want to make sure that we're not just giving out, because obviously we're recording this earlier in the week. I want to make sure we're not just giving out chalk stacks. So it's possible if we do like a poll like this, I'll just X out the top ones, something I'm considering, and then moving to something a little bit more contrarian. But you can still keep getting your votes in. I'm going to move over to the NFL data table. So if you are new to this, linemovement.com, you go to the resources tab, NFL data table. This is something that used to be available to only my Twitch subscribers, but now it's free at linemovement.com for whoever wants to use it. So this is basically each position. We break it down. We got Vegas lines in here from blitzbet.eu, of course. We have some ownership projections that will populate throughout the week. And also at each position, we'll have some things that I think are super important just to help you condense your research process. That's the goal with this overall. So one of the things that I'm really focused on is obviously trying to find efficient quarterbacks that are willing to throw deep, quarterbacks in games where there's a high team total, all that good stuff. So the first stack that I want to talk to you guys about today, Aaron Rodgers to Davante Adams to Lazard, and I'm going to bring it back with DJ Chark. So I like this Green Bay and Jacksonville game, especially the Green Bay side of this, a lot. And I also think that Aaron Jones, now that we have this opening of savings with no Christian McCaffrey, Mike Davis at the Stone Min, I think a lot of people are going to find their way to Aaron Jones. So let's figure out a way to build in a stack with this passing game. Rodgers obviously is a great quarterback in any situation, but this Jacksonville team is generating pressure at the league's lowest rate. Aaron Rodgers leads the league in touchdowns. He's got 21 touchdowns and touchdown rate at 10%. So I just think that this is a fantastic spot to jump back on this passing game to kind of compound, I guess, this favorable matchup. The Jaguars have played the league's third highest rate of man coverage this year, 48%, while the Green Bay offense, they've seen the highest rate of man coverage in general, 46%. Rodgers leads the league in TD rate versus man coverage at 17%. So if we're going to kind of, I guess, parlay that into why we're playing Davante Adams, all that good stuff. League leading 42% target per route run over the last 3 games. Davante Adams, if we move over to wide receiver here, yards per route run. Obviously, Richie James, very small sample here, but if we take that out, Davante Adams leading the way. He's targeted on 33% of the team's passes versus man coverage. He's hauled in 5 touchdowns against that type of coverage this year. Adams has 26 receptions versus man this year. The next highest guy on the team, 7. So I'm in. He's $9K. He's expensive. But again, we're trying to get a little bit different with some of these stacks as well. So Davante Adams, in 6 games that he has played, Adams has been the receiver on 26 of 55 of the team's completions versus man coverage. That's almost 50%, 47%, guys. So that leads us to Lazard. He gives us a little bit of salary saving. He's been battling through that core muscle injury. That's a little scary, but it gives us some kind of cheap correlation. I like Lazard quite a bit. The last time we saw him, 8 targets for 146 yards and a touchdown. So we like that quite a bit. DJ Chark on the other side of this, guys. We saw it last week, but he is the truth. 6,200. You got to pay up for it a little bit, but 488 air yards over the last 3 games to go along with 33 targets. 8 of those targets have been for 20 yards or more, including 5 in week 9 from Jake Luton. Chark's utilization, guys, this guy's the real deal, and he's being used like a true number 1 right now. If you wanted to go a little bit safer or a little bit cheaper in some ways, you could go to Robinson, you could go to Cole, but I'm trying to find a way to Chark. So we'll see. We'll try and build a lineup with this later. I like that one quite a bit. The other thing that I like at quarterback, guys, and you know this by now, is I like quarterbacks that throw deep. Average intended air yards, just a next-gen stat. Drew Lock is 5,500. Hear me out. 10 average intended air yards per attempt. That's just completely off the charts. He's looked bad at times this year, for sure. But the upside is there. He's still 5,500. in this Denver and Las Vegas game that we expect there to be points. I think it's super interesting. So my second stack, Drew Lock to Jerry Judy to Noah Fant and to KJ Hamler, the Matt Harmon favorite who we just talked about in the Sleepers video. If you're watching this video at a later date, definitely check out the wide receiver sleepers video with Harmon. We go into KJ Hamler at length. I'm going to bring it back with Josh Jacobs. So let's start with Jerry Judy. We talked a little bit about this also with Harmon. He's moved out of the slot into the perimeter, similar to what we saw from Justin Jefferson back in week 3. We saw what happened there. But one of the things I think that's super interesting about a guy like Jerry Judy is that if we look at his overall air yards and yards after the catch combined on a per game basis, he is number 8 overall right now. That's right there with guys like Devontae Adams, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, Tyreek Hill, Ridley, Diggs, like the list goes on of like some of the elite wide receivers. Jerry Judy, number 8 in that on a per game basis. That is huge. So I like that quite a bit. Noah Fant, the Broncos are thin at tight end right now. That much we know. Let's go back to the data sheet and look at tight end. So we know that we want high team totals. We know that we want ones that are actually running routes, that are actually getting touches. Noah Fant, he's 4,900 at a gross position, adding to our correlation a little bit right now. The Broncos are thin at tight end. They lost Albert O, obviously, to a torn ACL last week. Maybe Noah Fant gets a little bit healthier. He's been kind of hobbling around a little bit on that ankle, which isn't great. He re-aggravated it last week, but was able to return to the game. So I think that obviously he will practice on Wednesday. We saw that today, but I think there's a chance he comes back and isn't just hobbling around like he was last week. Maybe he's a little bit healthier. KJ Hamler, we talked about it again with Harmon, but he ran a route on 75% of the dropbacks last week, saw 10 targets and 109 air yards. He's extremely cheap, guys. He's under 4K. So I think there's a chance that we're kind of just witnessing this coming out party for Jerry Judy. We mentioned it before, but 341 air yards over the last 2 weeks after being moved out of the slot. So I like that quite a bit. At running back, guys, we know that touches are key. Josh Jacobs, after a down game last week, I like the idea of going back to Josh Jacobs in a lot of ways. I think that could be pretty sharp. He's still getting all the usage around the goal line. We know that there's a ceiling here of touches, high team total, 6,500. He's kind of in that no man's land. If it happens that Drake comes back and no one's going back to Chase Edmonds, I think it's really interesting. Mike Davis at 4K, this opens up. We're going to have a little bit of extra salary to mess around with. So I don't typically go after Josh Jacobs because he doesn't have that elite pass catching role. But I think that on this slate specifically, where there's not like just a lot of just absolute mega studs, and if you do want to kind of get different and not play Kamara, not play Aaron Jones, like I have my concerns about both of these guys at the top end. I like the idea of bringing it back on the other side with Josh Jacobs. Maybe he's just, you can, I guess, make an argument for one of the pass catchers like Ruggs, but I'm kind of done with that a little bit. Derek Carr is just not willing to push the ball down the field and let Ruggs make plays. So I like Josh Jacobs still at this price point as a bring back in particular of these Drew Lock stacks overall. So again, this chart or this poll that we went to, a lot of people are going to be on Buffalo. A lot of people are going to be on Seattle. Those are great stacks. We're going to try and get a little bit different with these ones in this video. So let's do this as a group. We did it last week. I think one of these lineups cashed last week, actually, that we did on this show. So let's kind of run it back and let's build a Millionaire Maker team. Let's start with that Aaron Rodgers team. So I think this one's going to be a little bit more difficult in terms of salary, but let's see if we can make it work. We got Rodgers, Adams, Lazard, Chark. Keep an eye on this injury. I know he says he's on the IR, but I believe he's playing. They don't plan to activate him before. So there's no updated news yet on Lazard. The last I saw, it looked like he was trending to be playing. So let's figure out what we can do in terms of value here. Let's go ahead and lock in Mike Davis. He's 4K. What's a defense? Chat, help me out with defense right now. Is there a cheap defense that you guys are on this week as a placeholder? Doesn't mean we have to play them. I just want to always kind of like, let's fill that slot for a second. Do we just go like, if we're not sacking up the Rams and Seahawks game, do we just go all the way down to the Rams defense at 2,200? I don't mind that. I think that would be my like, if we're not playing the stack, we might as well try and leverage it a little bit, right? So I think that's interesting. Someone said Bengals versus Rudolph. That's not bad. Washington, Bengals, Cincinnati's 2,100. Yeah, so maybe that's one. Let's keep it at Rams for now because I like the leverage there off of Seattle since this isn't a Seattle stack. So the way that I like to think about tight end is we either want to try and pay all the way up for one of these elite options, Darren Waller. We could just add Darren Waller to this and just have a little bit of a hedge off of our other stack with Josh Jacobs obviously coming back. He's 5,900. He's kind of expensive. We could just add Robert Tonyan to this. He's 3,600. Just add a little bit of correlation. I don't mind that. Let's start with that. Adding some correlation here, because then that gives us a little bit of an out. If we don't want to play Lazard, maybe we find another 4K wide receiver or something like that. Fully onslaughting the Green Bay side of this. I don't hate that. I think we got a decent amount of salary to work with here, though. So at running back, is there like a middle of the pack type of guy that we like? Chase Edmonds. I wish we had Drake news as of right now because I think Edmonds would probably be my guy here. So let's see what happens if we just put Edmonds in. That leaves us a 6,800 in the flex. We got Terry McLaurin against Detroit. We could go Nick Chubb in that game where he is back against Houston. I think that's interesting. Tyler Lockett, 6,500. What are you guys thinking in this last spot? A lot of Gibson people in the chat right now. That's interesting. He's 5,600, so we have a little bit more salary than that. Very interesting. Someone said Swift. He's 5,100. So in the spirit of this, we always want to try and think of it a little bit from a leverage perspective, or at least I do. So we have like basically a Green Bay onslaught here with Chark coming back. We have this Seattle and LA game crossed out. Is there an Arizona? We already have an Arizona Buffalo player. What do you? I don't mind the Kareem Hunt play, or sorry, the Nick Chubb play here. People are scared to play him because he's coming off of injury. This Houston stack on the other side of it probably ends up being popular. I kind of like that. Let's go with that for now. Someone said Duke Johnson. What's Duke Johnson's price? He's 5K. We'll keep that one in our back pocket. So if we ended up having to change this lineup to something like Duke Johnson at 5K, then we got 8,100 to play with. So then if we don't have someone like Edmonds there, we can go Hopkins to get access to that Buffalo-Arizona game as a one-off. We can go DK Metcalf, but then we're against the Rams D, so I don't like that as much. Yeah, maybe Nuke in the flex. I don't hate that. So those are the two options, I think, with the Rodgers stack for now. This one will be fun, though. Let's do the Drew Lock stack. So Drew Lock, Jerry Judy, to Noah Fant, and KJ Hamler. Bring it back with Josh Jacobs. All right. So we got a decent amount of salary to play with. What's another cheap defense? We don't have to play this defense. Someone mentioned Bengals against Rudolph. I don't hate that. Let's start with that one. Someone said Aaron Jones. Yeah, maybe we want to kind of hedge out that other lineup that we have with Aaron Jones. I don't mind that play. I love Chark on the other side. I think that Chark is still such an amazing play. Like with a guy that is clearly willing to throw it deep. So like we always want to talk about little mini correlations too, right? So Chark would make sense with our Aaron Jones. But do we have the salary for it? We do. 8,300. So we can still get up to Kamara here, guys. This is the type of lineup that I like to build. I like to be able to jam in a lot of running back touches, have somewhat of a contrarian stack. I would think this full stack would be relatively contrarian, but the correlation's good. We got Josh Jacobs coming back. We still have a little mini stack here with Aaron Jones and Chark. Bengals defense, so pick your poison with defense. We got 2,200 if you wanted to do that. If we wanted to kind of leverage up this Seahawks game, I still think that you could go Rams here. Russell Wilson taking sacks. I think it's interesting for sure. that's kind of where I'm at on the stacks for this week, guys. If you enjoyed this video, definitely let me know in the comments what your favorite stack of the week is. Toss a like on this video. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Would love it if you would join our community. Check out the Patreon, the Discord, all that good stuff, and leave me a rating or review on Apple Podcasts if you're listening to this for the first time. But that's going to do it for the Week 10 stacks.